In the kitchen. When Mr. Poo Pants goes to the witch parties, well, he's horrible. Why? Because he's the boss. We have to call him Hyman. Yes, I'm Mr. Brown, because they say, children, come here. Children, come here? What do you mean? Well, Mr. Poo Pants says to me, number 1, come here. We have numbers, but Mr. Poo Pants and Mr. Brown don't have numbers.
What was it that made you finally make sense of the kind of bits and pieces of things that the little boys that were with you were telling you?
I think firstly was when he put all the cushions on the floor and put the teddy bear into the middle and got me to dance round like they did at the parties and jump on and off the teddy bear. And this was one of the parties where bad things happened, and obviously the teddy bear was a baby that was going to be killed.
We found out she had been defecated on, that it was smeared all over her body and put in her mouth.
My children have talked about all those things and worse. They've talked about having to kill other children.
Well, she told me about the time from as we think was about a year and a half, 2 years old, when this was the satanic cult that she was involved with. And she was made to take a gun and put it up to someone's head. It was another child, and pull the trigger.
One of the greatest difficulties in reporting a story like this one is that so much of it sounds so outrageous, too dreadful, too bizarre to be true. Well, here in Nebraska and elsewhere across this nation, concerned citizens have gotten together to defeat that disbelief. This organization is called Believe the Children. Its guiding principle, that the stories these young victims are telling are too widespread, too consistent not to be true.
The stories are so outrageous, and I am such an honest person, I assumed everybody would believe me. And to this day, I'll get in the middle of a story and I'll think, they're going to think I'm crazy. This sounds crazy. But when you begin to hear this same thing time and again, different stories, but the same horrible underlying things, the same behaviors in the kids, I just want to scream.
I'm a stranger. I come up to you and you tell me this story and I say, I don't believe you. How do you react? What do you do?
I just say, well, that's your right not to believe it. But someday, if you see something or you hear something from somebody else, just remember what you heard from me.
If we were lying, I don't think we would come up with such good lies.
Are you telling us the truth?
If this isn't true, I mean, you can do anything you want with me, but it's true.
He has drawn pictures of a child being sacrificed. He's talked about animal sacrifices. He's disclosed molestation.
In the very places created to care for children, in nurseries and daycare centers across the nation, there are increasing reports of ritual sexual abuse. The children of McMartin are still filled with lurid stories of their awful experience there.
What did they say the devil would do to you?
They said that if we told that the devil would come and kill our parents, and he said that we wouldn't live to be the age 9.
What were they doing to you?
Molesting me.
What does that mean? What does molesting you mean?
Touching us in places we don't want, and then they would threaten us oh, you don't say a word else we're gonna come to your house and kill everybody except for you, and we're gonna send you to the devil and everything. And they would scare us really much.
No region in this country is beyond the reach of the devil worshippers. Even here in the heartland of America, stories of ritual abuse crop up. The children you're about to meet were born into it. They say their parents forced them to witness bloody ritual, and even they say to participate in ritual murder. Now in the safe haven of a concerned foster family, the children are haunted by their personal nightmares.
My dad was involved in a lot of he's one of the main guys. He's a leader or something. He made us have sex with them and with other guys, and he's done it with other people. I don't know, I just don't like him.
Tell us what else besides having sex with him and the other guys that make you do.
Kill kids and be there and involved in everything else that happened. And I had to be there. And if I didn't, he threatened, you're gonna be killed, or people aren't gonna believe you if you tell anybody. Or I'll find you. So he said there's no way out.
I was really involved with the Satanic Church every day. The high priest would come and get me, and they would take me to the church, and they would violate me, but we'd have communion every day, and that consisted of blood and urine and semen and a black widow, and that was, an everyday part of my life.
How did you feel about that?
I felt really scared, but at the same time I liked the power that I had, that they taught, and I had inside of me, because everybody has gifts inside of them, and you can be influenced by the Holy Spirit or the familiar spirit, and I was totally influenced by the familiar spirit. I had Satanists around me constantly following me.
You saw many very ugly things, like animals get sacrificed, even humans, and other really terrible things. Did it ever occur to you that this was evil?
No, because I was so brainwashed at the time, because when I was 4 years old, I was raped and molested by a high priest, and I knew nothing else of all that stuff.
You have explained to us that there was human sacrifice that went on inside of the Satanic Church and inside of Satanic ritual. Can you tell us how this was done?
How did they murder people? All the children's posters that you see that are missing, they're pretty much dead. They have underground caverns in the mountains, and they keep the children and the kids and the women and men there.
Is this difficult for you to talk about?
It's really difficult because, I feel really scared, because I don't know how to tell everybody that's out there that I came out, because I'm not sure if anybody's gonna believe this, because it's so much like a fantasy.
Je suis d'accord pour que l'on passe à la télévision mon témoignage et celui de mon frère, mais à visage caché, afin que je ne sois pas gênée par rapport à mes copines et copains. Je trouve que le viol des enfants doit être reconnu. Je veux que les gens sachent que ça existe.
Marie, c'est ainsi que nous l'avons nommée, a écrit cette lettre de sa propre volonté. Marie et son frère, que nous appellerons Pierre, affirment que leur père et d'autres adultes les auraient violés et terrorisés au cours de cérémonies étranges. Leur histoire, Pierre et Marie l'ont déjà racontée une vingtaine de fois aux policiers et aux juges. C'est donc un récit maintes fois répété, construit et riche en détails que les enfants nous ont livré. Pour recueillir le témoignage du petit Pierre et de sa sœur, nous les avons rencontrés une quinzaine de fois en un an. Des deux enfants, c'est surtout l'aînée, Marie, qui raconte et qui dessine. Ici, elle nous parle de son père et des lieux où il les aurait emmenés.
Il y avait un endroit à Paris, dont lui c'était le chef. Donc il disait qu'il était un grand mage et qu'il s'appelait Bouclobo. Et dans cet endroit, ils avaient des grandes robes blanches avec des bords dorés. Puis ils faisaient les prières, ils violaient les enfants, ils leur faisaient peur, et puis il y avait plusieurs autres gens aussi qui nous violaient, ils nous endormaient avec des espèces de bouillies. Puis ils nous attachaient aussi sur des tables, et puis ils nous frappaient, ils nous mettaient des aiguilles auprès des yeux pour nous faire croire qu'ils voulaient nous crever les yeux.
Et est-ce qu'ils vous faisaient réellement du mal? Est-ce qu'ils vous donnaient des coups?
Oui. Nous, ils nous frappaient.
Qu'est-ce que tu nous as dit?
C'était horrible.
Si aujourd'hui cette peur s'est estompée, la douleur est toujours présente, surtout quand ils évoquent les faits les plus graves dont ils auraient été témoins. Tu tues les enfants? Comment tu le sais ça?
Parce que j'aime plus. J'ai dit à petit enfant qui était des enfants qui étaient un peu arabes et des choses comme ça, et puis il leur tombait la tête.
Je m'attendais absolument pas à voir cela. Ce qui m'a sauté le plus aux yeux, c'est que j'ai connaissance d'un gamin qui va faire un dessin exactement le même que le dessin de la gamine. On pourra peut-être se poser des questions.
Du hast gesagt, Sie haben eines der zwei Kinder, die außerdem noch da waren, auf den Tisch gelegt? Haben Sie alle etwas gemacht oder war es nur einer?
Es war nur einer.
War es immer der gleiche? Kannst du sagen, was passiert ist, ohne Details zu nennen?
Also, sie haben das Kind zersägt.
Sie haben ein Kind zersägt?
Sie haben Teile von seinem Körper abgetrennt.
Womit?
Mit einem elektrischen Messer.
Haben Sie das Kind lebend zersägt? Und dann haben Sie es getötet?
Nein, die haben es leiden lassen.
Aber das Kind ist trotzdem gestorben.
Ja.
Deborah fühlte sich ohnmächtig, als sie all die Morde an den Kindern sah. Aber jetzt, wo sie sprechen kann, hofft sie, all den Kindern damit zu helfen, die das noch durchmachen. Sie haben einen Finger abgeschnitten?
Einen Fuß. Solche Dinge.
Sie haben einen Fuß abgeschnitten und es sterben lassen.
Und sie haben es währenddessen missbraucht.
Also er hat das Kind missbraucht und die anderen schauten zu.
And in that particular instance, they were taking children out of foster homes, orphanages, Boys Town, driving them from Omaha, Nebraska to Sioux City, Iowa, 184 miles away, placing them in private jets and flying them to Washington, D.C. for sex orgies with prominent people, including congressmen, senators, and certain people in the White House.
That's Alice Dare McAlpine, who's a collector of Graham Ovenden's art. My friend also alleges that key to Ovenden's art are themes surrounding the drugging of children.
Hillary Clinton blamed the victim. Number 101 when you're dealing with rape cases, don't blame the victim. She blamed a 12-year-old girl, a 6th grade 12-year-old girl, of seeking the attention of older men and fantasizing about being with older men. There's audio.
Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this, so I mean, I just think you should be very.
It's widely reported. It's widely reported.
Widely reported. It says the National Enquirer, widely reported.
We
Widely
can
reported
go.
doesn't mean anything. Now, it's not on this network, I would point out.
Okay, well, there's an audio tape where Hillary Clinton laughs about the defendant in this case.
The story was mostly forgotten until in 2014, audio emerged of Clinton talking about the case with an Arkansas journalist back in the 1980s.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring.
Aside from the fact that you had sex with some of these politicians, at some of these parties, did you recognize any prominent senators or congressmen or anybody?
I've seen, at the time, Vice President Bush go in and all he did was the kids perform oral sex on him. That was it.
Kids what?
Perform oral sex on him. And
the kid performed oral sex. Which, the black kid or the white kid?
Both of them. Well, when
Vice President Bush came in. Two separate parties. Once with a white kid, once with a black kid. Yeah. So you saw him twice.
Yeah.
The illumination of 1,000 points of light, and it is expressed by all who know the irresistible force of a child's hand.
They call the boys toys. I don't know what they call the girls. The men are more interested in the little boys than they are the girls for some reason.
Crowley taught that the way you could live forever was through sodomy, especially of young boys.
So definitely, in my opinion, a conspiracy here. I have to say there's a conspiracy. If not a direct conspiracy, certainly a loose-knit conspiracy. By the mere fact that these kids, if it's true, and I have a tendency to believe it is true, these kids were transported to Los Angeles, where they obtained drugs, where they were involved in ritual ceremonies. They were transported to Washington, D.C., where they claimed they were molested, and there were obviously some top political figures involved in this sort of thing.
Here is a piece of information that came to me in the mail. It came from the investigation by the Franklin Committee of the Nebraska Legislature. It was verified in its authenticity by Republican Senator Lauren Schmidt of the unicameral of the Nebraska Legislature, who verified the truth and authenticity of it. I want to give you a picture of true horror. But children were not merely abused. One victim described an incident at a farm near Elkhorn, Nebraska in 1981 or 82, where a 10-year-old in 1981 or 82, where a 10-year-old boy was repeatedly sodomized and beaten by older men. He finally lay crying with blood streaming from his rectum. One of the men took up a pitchfork, playfully playing with him at first, but finally sticking one tine into him. While the boy screamed and the other men stood around and laughed, finally the whole pitchfork was stuck through him, killing him. Snuff films were involved as well. Another young boy was taken by someone in the King Circle from Nebraska to another city and forced to perform oral sex on a man. As the abuser reached orgasm, he shot the boy in the head with a pistol, all of which was filmed.
The street gangs are operating with the drugs and with the child kidnapping, I believe.
That's right.
And in Des Moines, I have found an area where the gangs meet underneath the bridge. And it said on there, and missing children are dead.
This report states it reaches high into Republican Party circles in Washington, D.C. Pedophilia owns this nation. Pedophilia is part of what we're talking about. And the hiding of the pedophiles is being done by none other than the FBI. Found one newspaper man. Not one journalist in the state, not the Cedar Rapids Gazette, not the Des Moines Register, not the Quad City Times, not the Dubuque Telegraph Herald, all of which have run stories on me. Not one of them willing to pick up the telephone and make one single telephone call to begin verifying the truth of what I'm saying.
So when I presented what we had in our case, the person that followed me in presenting was a member of the FBI, and what they had laid on the table about this size was nothing but one publication after another that had all been taken from a pedophile in a raid that the FBI conducted. One of the things was a book on how to molest small children without leaving marks on them. We're talking toddlers. How to coerce or abduct a child into a car. The how-to books that teach pedophiles to do this. Paraphernalia that would be used in some type of sexual torture for children. And then the other interesting thing that was there on the table was a book of pictures of kids who had not yet been kidnapped.
The statement was that you could order a kid out of that book.
And the interesting thing is that from time to time when we do hear of reports of children being photographed either on a playground and or walking to and from school or just whatever, in many cases there is an abduction attempt on the same child up to 3 weeks, a month, or 2 months later.
There are internment camps around the country where they keep these people after they kidnap them. And I've heard of one in Des Moines, Iowa, as a matter of fact. I know of one in West Virginia. I know of one in Nevada near the Arizona border. I know of some in California and also in the state of Washington. And these are well organized. They're camps where they keep the people in cages. And I've been told that they're involved in brainwashing these particular camps. And many of the victims that are kidnapped end up in these camps.
NAMBLA stands for North American Boy Love Association. And this was brought to our attention. It was acquired through an underground connection. And it was, the date on here is June of 1983, just a few months after Johnny was taken. And on the front page of NAMBLA's bulletin, down at the bottom, they are warning all of their members, of which Iowa has many, all of their members not to in any way comply with the FBI and submit to any kind of questioning on the Johnny Gosch case. And they were very careful to spell it out, Johnny Gosch case. Then this is continued over here on page 3. There's another section about Johnny Gosch. Now, why would a rag like this need to warn their members not to talk about our case unless there's some connection?
Now, I have actual records of a meeting of the Man-Boy Association in 1979. They had $620 in their bank account as of that time. By 1989, they were depositing $5 million in the Franklin Credit Union in Nebraska. What for? To pay for children kidnapped across the country, to pay for taking children out of Boys Town and out of Girls Town to be used for prostitution purposes and porn films.
In that when we were talking about another very famous child, Ethan Paez, who is Pate, some people pronounce it, whose parents have, as the Gosches have, spent endless hours searching for their lost son and much pain. Actually, I did ask, have you seen him? And he said he didn't know, and he wasn't sure. And then I received a letter from him. He said to me in 1990 that he had seen me actually in 1982 at such and such a place at such and such a time, and had been told that I was marked to die. And therefore he was afraid of what he could or couldn't tell me, what would happen to me. I went back and checked my diary, and I was exactly where he said I was. Those are the kinds of things that convinced me that there was a great deal in what Benassi was saying in Nebraska that had to be further investigated. And that to bring him up on charges for lying for the grand jury when they haven't investigated. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the alleged perpetrators was also told by everyone that he had a large abdominal scar. It would seem to me, I don't think it could be a physician, that if you're told by someone that X has a large abdominal scar and that he is a perpetrator of pedophilia, all you have to do is look at the man's abdomen. Does he or does he not have the scar? No one to this day has ever looked at this person's abdomen, nor has he been willing to show his abdomen. I mean, if I were an innocent person accused of a heinous crime of constantly buying boy prostitutes, I'd sure as shoot be willing to show whether or not I had an appendectomy scar and abdominal scar if I didn't have one. It would only be if I had one that I would stay buttoned up.
What a snuff film is? Snuff film is what it implicates. You snuff out a candle, well, you snuff out a life in this film. And Paul Bonacci has taken part in a film in which he had sex with a boy both before and after he was killed.
As I got to know more about Bonacci, and he wrote me letters, and I listened to his descriptions of the rites of the different sects that he had been in, of the killings, of who performed the fetal Eucharist, which is the actual drinking of the blood and eating or cannibalizing the child, or the newborn, or the abortus, or an adult in some instances. I discovered that everything he said fit into, one would say, the traditional rites of the Antichrist sects.
He had conducted human sacrifice. She said, I gave him all kinds of quizzes, which if he wasn't part of the satanic circle and he hadn't achieved the various steps of Satanism, he wouldn't know. I said to him, did you ever eat the eyes? And he said, no, because my other personality, Christian, wouldn't let me go to the ceremony that night. Now, eating the eyes means that you're high up in the hierarchy of Satanism, and you pluck the eyes out of a human and eat them.
We're going to discuss, say, communion in the Roman Catholic Church. It would be the same in Rome, and in England, and in France, and in Australia, and in China, and wherever Roman Catholicism was practiced. Well, the Satanists do the same thing, so that when they are performing certain rites, they have the dagger, and it's a similar dagger throughout the world, with which they do the killings. They have the communion plate, which has certain markings on it. They have the chalice. They have the stilo or stiletto, with which a newborn's child is punctured. Heart is punctured by the mother, actually, of this child. That mother can be as young as 12 or 13, which is very frightening. And then she draws out that blood. There is other rituals, which he discussed. And only certain priests or certain levels in the hierarchy are permitted to do those rituals. And he knew every single ritual correctly and knew was to do them.
And the woman who got on cable access television and said, the foster children I've had in my home, and she was a very brave lady, and she took the worst foster children, the foster children that no one else would take. And one by one, they began to tell her about being involved in these satanic things. And she said one girl at Christmas time lay on the floor and screamed for 2.5 hours. She said, I can't get the sound of the babies crying out of my head. Christmas is the worst time because that's when we kill the most babies.
The children I have taught